classes in my school.
Okay, one time you had 3 special ed classes.
Special ed,
Okay.
EI, emotionally impaired.
Uh-huh.
I think all 3 of them were emotionally impaired, but they were different age groups.
Mm-hmm.
Most of the school didn't want them.
Yeah.
They didn't want them because they
That's
were
sad.
they were different. They needed help.
Right.
And they had an impact on the school in 2 different ways.
Uh-huh.
And both of them were positive.
Mm-hmm.
First of all, they were integrated into the regular classroom.
Mm-hmm.
A certain amount of time they spent. We tried to get them involved in a regular classroom. If you leave a student like that in an EI room forever, he becomes a permanent EI.
Yeah.
They should be allowed to
mainstream.
So they benefited from that, and the kids embraced them. Which meant to me that there's a learning process going on, both for the EI student and for the regular student in the classroom.
Right.
And the teachers. And that's the most important, is the acceptance of the teacher having a student like that in their classroom, because they can be disrupted.
Yes. Yes.
But it's surprising what happens through peer pressure. And
Yes.
that's not a good word. I shouldn't use that. But when kids accept someone who's different,
maybe experiential learning,
that
maybe?
person becomes more normal.
Yes.
If you can understand that.
Yes. Yes.
They want to be like the other kids.
It makes sense.
And the only way they're going to be like the other kids is to be with the other kids.
That's right.
And the other schools didn't understand that. They didn't. I shouldn't say that. I don't mean to say that to condemn the principal or the faculty, but I knew they were not accepted at other schools.
Right.
But we opened our arms to them.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it had a very positive effect on the students who were in the classroom
Mm-hmm.
and the special educational students.
Yeah.
Both became more accepting of each
Yes.
other.
Yes.
And I can't explain that. You had to see it to really understand it. But if you can imagine a kid who was half the time would throw himself on the floor just having anger fits,
Yes.
get into a regular classroom, he was as normal as the rest of the kids.
Yes. Yes.
And it's so important to understand why those special ed children needed to be in a school that would accept them in the other classroom.
Yes.
Because they became regular when they were in there. When they were in with each other,
Mm-hmm.
they were totally different.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because you mentioned to me before the interview started that you think you're the only principal who was ever placed as a principal by petition of the parents.
Yes.
And that may have been one very important factor, how that happened, because you were so well respected by the parents and the
Yes,
in the
I'm not. I guess if you ask me why they did that, I would say part of it is because they knew how I felt about the way I went about teaching kids, treating them as individuals.
Yes.
And they themselves, having been students at one time, realized the difference. And in so doing that, I guess they felt I would be a good a principal that would carry that effect over to, and I can't say that it affected the other teachers. I don't think it did in some cases. Although we had a wonderful teaching set, but every teacher has her or his way of bringing the information to the students.
Yes. Yes.
Now, it was my way best. I can't say that. It was best, I felt, for my students.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But the other teachers were very good teachers, had different different approaches to bring that information to their students.
Yes, yes.
So why they elected me as principal is based on, I guess, what they saw I did with my students in the classroom.
The parents demanded it. They wanted you.
Yes, I guess. I don't know, but I was honored. I was honored, although I'd rather be in the class for them. And so what I did is, on certain days, I'd go in the library. When the kids had library time, I'd go in there and I told them stories. Just particularly at Halloween.
Yes, yes.
And I don't know how much you knew that. I had a Santa Claus uniform. So I went around when I was in phys ed teacher, I'd dress up in my Santa Claus. And I'd go around to different schools and play Santa Claus. And the funny thing about all that is, they knew who it was.
Yes, I think I remember.
And they knew who it was because they recognized my wedding band. I did the same thing in the neighborhood.
That's how good you were. That's the only way they could have known.
But you can't fool kids. And that's why teachers should know that you can't fool kids.
Yeah.
They're the best judge of a good teacher.
Yes.
Best evaluation of a teacher.
I remember in the article that was done in 1985, you mentioned that you would wish that more folks with teaching experience would run for the school board. Do you see that as a statewide problem, that there needs to be more school board members with teaching experience, so that they know how to know the problems and they can be better listeners of the parents and the students?
Yeah, I think, Dan, the only school board I knew was our school board.
Yep.
And I knew some of the members personally because they were parents of mine. That most of them were connected with the automobile industry.
Yes. Most of the board members, or many of them?
Yes, board members.
Yeah.
Were the only profession that have non-professional board members. The doctors don't. The dentists don't. The teachers are the only one.
In other words, school districts is the only.
In the school district.
Right.
And because we're in the heart of the automobile industry.
And it's that way across the entire state of Michigan, is what you're pretty much saying.
They really wanted kids treated like how should I say it? Like a car coming down the line.
Yes.
Everybody put the wheels on, the windshields in, the motor in.
Right.
They wanted us to treat children like cars going down the assembly line. You can't do that.
Right. We'll put it on pause here. Okay, there we go. So I'm sorry.
Why not have retired teachers or teachers,
right,
who know what the business of what policy should be? A board just deals with policy, and I know that.
Right.
But the policy affects children.
Yes.
And who knows children better than teachers?
Yes.
Or administrators?
That makes
so
sense.
My thought has been, wouldn't it be better if our profession had professional teachers or administrators on the board who knew kids?
Yes.
Rather than people who were in other businesses who felt that we could treat our children like building a car.
Yes.
It just doesn't work.
It doesn't work.
And so the people on the board were dedicated.
Yes.
But they just didn't have the background of how to deal with children.
Right.
What's best for children. So that's why I made that statement.
Right. It makes total sense.
I've seen that happen up here. We know a teacher who retired who sits on the school board up here in Onaway. And she's very influential with the school board because of her background. So that's where I saw where it really happened.
Yes, yes. Well, and actually that brings me, I guess, to my last question. There's much privatization going on in Michigan, and an increased number of charter schools, and many believe that it's really putting undue pressure on the public school system, and I'm wondering, since your retirement, you've probably been keeping track of that. How do you feel about the increased number of charter schools?
Give me a definition of a charter school.
Well, that's a good question. I've been told by some folks that charter schools are public schools, so that's part of the debate. Is a charter school also a public school? Many teachers feel yes, and other teachers feel no. A charter school is not a public school. I guess legally it's defined as a public school, but when I mean say charter school, I'm talking about schools run by private companies or corporations, as opposed to wholly owned and operated, run by the public
So you
system.
have to pay a tuition to go to that school, or is it?
No, that I guess the tax dollars are sent to the charter schools that are privately
Some of them
run.
are.
Yeah.
Okay.
And so you have the charter schools that are taxpayer supported, competing with the public school system.
Are all students welcome to these schools, or just the affluent?
I believe all charter schools do welcome applications from students.
They don't have to meet a certain criteria to be.
I believe that's the case.
They have different credentials for teaching.
But there are different credentials for teaching is one example. Some charter schools have different requirements for teaching credentials.
I don't think it's as strict as in a public school.
Not as strict as in a public school, as far as the teaching credentials.
Why would a parent choose to go to that school rather than to a public school? What's so attractive about a charter school?
That's a good question, and that's maybe I think many people are asking why would somebody choose a charter school over a public school?
Charter schools are more, I found, advertised. Charter schools are more advertised, so they want not only just like a public school, the more students they have, the more heads, they get more money from the government to run. So charter schools have more advertising. So that's how they get kids from the city or from the other districts.
They're not offered any more than the public school. Do they have?
You know how they do a head count in whatever day they have their head count? Then they get that. As long as they've got that many students, they get their money from the government. Okay. So the same thing with the charter.
I've always been a public school fan.
Yes.
I think they get a chance to rub elbows with every child, and their economic background, whatever their past experience has been, to bring that to the classroom. That's the way life is.
Yes.
The charter school may do the same thing. I don't know that much about the charter school, but the public school offers the child everything. If they need special reading, they have a reading teacher. If they need gym, they have gym. If they need music, they have music. If they need art, they have art. Mm-hmm. We are in the business of teaching the whole child. We don't just teach the educational part of the child, because the child comes to you needing everything. And a teacher does that.
Yes.
That is really their responsibility, is to look at the child and teach the whole child. If he's hungry, feed him. If he needs loving, hug him. If he needs someone to talk to, listen to him. That's what a teacher is supposed to do. They're not just reading and writing and arithmetic. Because the child comes to, they haven't had breakfast because the parents had to go to work, have food available at the school. They could come to Starkweather and they could go to the kitchen and have breakfast. It won't be a fancy breakfast. It'd be a bowl of cereal or a banana or something like that.
Right.
The only decent meal some of them got was the one they got at school. And I've said that before. So make that a pleasant place. Make that as much like family as possible. Because they miss that, a lot of them. Sitting down as a family, you sing this unknown to some of those children that came to Starkweather School.
Yes.
I tried to provide that by having in my lunchroom, a family type environment.
And that's what you get with a small elementary school located in the neighborhood.
Yes.
That I think is being lost these
Yes,
days. With
meeting the needs of the child. The highest child has many needs. If he's hungry, he's not going to learn.
Right.
If he's come from a home where they've had a fight or something, he's all upset. He's not ready to learn. You got to meet his needs before you can educate him. If you don't, you're not going to get through to him.
Right.
Did that happen all the time at Starkweather? No. Did we try to make it happen? Yes. Were we successful? Yes, we were, but not completely.
Cool. Very interesting. Very interesting.
So charter schools, if they meet all that criteria, I'd be for them. I know that public schools do meet that criteria more often than not.
Yes. Yes. Well, that's very interesting. Well, Mr. John Howe, thank you for spending this time sharing your experiences with your 28-year career with Plymouth Canton Schools, and we really appreciate it. And like I said, you do have a big fan following, and there are hundreds and hundreds of kids that are now in their 40s and 50s and 60s, and they still remember you very well. And I'm sure they're going to.
Well, thank you. I appreciate
really
that.
Appreciate it. And it's just
thank
you. And just to note, this is October 7th, 2017, and Mr. John Howe just celebrated his 90th birthday 6 days ago, and we want to wish you a happy birthday.
Yeah, thank you, Dan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you for your time.